couple more minutes and then I'll get started.
No. We can start. We can have 5 minutes at the end as buffer, right? You can take additional
Yeah,
questions or anything.
I'm
We can
sure.
start
I'm
now.
fine. I'm fine with that. So let's get started.
Um, okay, okay.
I think someone was saying something.
No,
Yeah,
Rohit?
no,
sorry.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
sorry.
was another moderator, I think.
Oh, okay.
Rohit.
Okay, no worries. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get started then. So welcome everyone to the to my session in the India Cloud Security Summit 2022. It is an enormous pleasure to be here, and of course, don't forget all the prizes. I think you already saw this slide some times now. There are some very cool prizes that I would not mind to win too. That Echo Show 8, it's great. I have one. I think I need to buy a second one because it's really cool. And of course, more important than prizes, basically support the cause. Um, don't forget, okay, if you can, of course, to donate. It's always nice to help others. To be honest, it's always something that I feel that the more fortune of us have the responsibility to do. So yeah, if you are among the group, yeah, donate. That will be you will be probably changing someone else's life more than what you think. But let's get started with our session. So my name is Tiago, and I'll talk about find your lack of Azure governance disturbing, which doing like just like a short presentation about myself. So basically, yeah, my name is Tiago. I work as a cloud architect and advisor. Basically, that's a fancy name to say, that I help companies moving and shifting workloads to the cloud, building cloud native workloads. And in the past years, I've been helping tons of companies, tons of customers with governance, which means they started with Azure. They never thought about, the rules of the game. So there is huge teams with permissions to create whatever they want, whenever they want, whatever they want. And yeah, that's something that we just can't have. Okay, so because of that, governance plays a great role in controlling how people can work out with all of that stuff, etc. So that's kind of what I want to cover. That's kind of what I want to cover here today. I'm also a trainer, so I help people get Microsoft certified in terms of Azure. I've been working with Azure for many years. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Azure certified trainer and a bunch of other certifications. And if you want to follow me, I can just share here, okay, the link of basically all the socials that I have, which is more convenient for you to follow if you want. I usually share tons of stuff around, of course, Azure and more precisely about Azure governance. So, but I always like to start, my presentations with, something cool here. And this is something that happened to me. And it's kind of also stolen from a joke about SQL databases and tables and stuff like that. But this really happens to me, and it's something that fits great on this presentation because we're going to talk about how can we make that something like this doesn't happen. So the joke is this is if coffee in the morning doesn't work for you, doesn't wake you up any morning, try to do this. Try to delete, okay, a production resource group. Because if this doesn't wake you up in the morning, I don't know what will wake you up as an Azure architect or engineer or whatever you do with Azure. Because, yeah, this happened to one of my customers. And yeah, it really wakes you up, believe me. So, what is the agenda for today? So, just a quick recap on what is cloud today. Then, when we talk about governance, of course, look, we need to talk about things like subscriptions management groups, Azure policies, RBAC, and let's not forget about cost management too, a very important topic that you can really show off your skills in a very, let's just say, straight and honest part to your customer, something that they can immediately measure that, whoa, yeah, Tiago was here and we saved 10,000 euros just today. And then, in the end of the year, we're going to save hundreds of thousands, of course, if it's a big customer. So yeah, being that person, believe me, makes you kind of a famous person inside the organization, okay? Because you really can tune up sometimes the cost management of certain customers. So, but let's get started with what is the cloud today. So the cloud today is what? It's complex. Let's be honest, it's super complex cloud today. We have millions of cloud resources. We have companies that Azure or cloud, it's not just a project that is from that business unit or just from that country when those very large multinational companies. No, it is something that is core to the organization, something that is across all the business units, all the projects on the organization. I have customers that when they think about let's build this, they think about let's build that for the cloud. They don't even think anymore about building that for on-prem. That is something that it just doesn't make any sense for them anymore. So we have that. Of course, then what we have millions of cloud resources in some of those customers. Uh, Smaller ones, thousands for sure. And all this adds up to the complexity. And if this is not enough, companies don't use just one cloud provider. They also use others. And we see here, let's just say the three big names in the industry. There are more, look, for sure. And then let's not forget every country also has, kind of their smaller players that are like national players too in the mix here. So yeah, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Amazon Web Services, so AWS. So basically, all of those, you know, they are they are basically the big players here, and it's common for companies to have more than one. And then, for example, I have like here a comment that says that you have a bunch of orphaned resources. Sure, like public IP addresses. That's the famous one, right? Because someone deleted some VMs or load balancers or something that has an IP address, but never deleted the IP address. Yeah. So I have like also customers where we found tons of those things. There are scripts, by the way, in the community, and if you can find them, just send me an email or basically on social network, just reach out, and I can send you some stuff around orphanage, our basically resources, but that just detects all of that. And of course, delete some of those. Yes, some you have to be careful. I have cases of, for example, SQL database. You just can't delete a SQL database. You might have some relevant data, but you can always, kind of back it up, store it somewhere, and then delete it if it's not in use. But just for compliance reasons, let's just create a backup and then store it. Same stuff with disks. Like I had a customer, they had like hundreds of disks that were not attached to any virtual machine, managed disks. And I was like, what the hell is this? Why you have this here? We deleted some VMs, but we never deleted the disks. But is there a reason for that? There was no reason for that. So yeah, we kind of backed them up and removed them from disks, and of course we save again loads of money for the company because we're talking about like a lot of those disks, to be honest. But yeah, reach out. I don't have it here right now because I don't have it the script here at end right now, or else I will just find it and send it. But just do that, and I will send it to you. That's fine. So this is what we have, and of course, then we need to talk about cloud manageability capabilities, and this is where security plays a huge role. Protect, like doing backups, thinking about disaster recovery, monitoring all of this again, massively important. Configuration with like PowerShell DSC, Azure Automation, scripting, custom script extensions for virtual machines, Intune, okay, like all of those play a huge role. And then we have what we are going to talk about here today, basically, which is this part, the part of governance, okay, the governance part, where policy management is, a great player, and of course, cost management. And this is where, today I'm going to focus on this, okay? And so for this, like I was saying, policy-based management. So we can create, policies in Azure. We call it Azure policies, okay? And that we can just take, an internal policy, a governmental policy that says and states sometimes stuff like this. Yeah, you can use the cloud, but all the data needs to be within your country. So yeah, in case of India, we have India data centers from Microsoft, so there's India regions. You know that you have to use one of those, okay, and that's it, okay? You can't use something in Singapore, for example. That's something that you just can't use because there is a regulation that tells you, oh, for that kind of data, it needs to be within the country. Sure, okay, definitely something that you can achieve. How can you achieve that? With policies, okay, to make sure that every single resource is within the, let's just say, authorized regions for your business case. Cost management and optimization. I think it's obvious. Using the cloud, um, let's be honest, and I know that not everyone agrees with me when I say this, uh, but using the cloud is less expensive than using on-prem. When you have in consideration all the on-prem costs that sometimes are really hard, to know how much they are. I have customers that they don't know how much they pay on electricity for running their servers. They just don't know because, it's a bill that comes to the company pays, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, but you know that you pay power for sure. And all the other similar costs, like this, that they don't take into consideration when they do this comparison. But still, there is lots of companies that they feel that cloud is more expensive because they are trying to use the cloud as they use on-prem. And this is where we can make a huge difference by going there and says, hey, look, we need to change this because if you change this to this model, you're going to pay less money. Okay, because I had customers that they had 20 servers for running a web application and they just migrated VMs to VMs. And when I got there and I said, hey, there's other services here to run web applications that if you use them, you might get something out of them. And when they saw that we migrate that and now we're paying a fraction, literally a fraction of the cost that we were paying before, they're like, oh yeah, this is the cloud, right? I was like, yeah, that's what the cloud is. It's not just running things the way as you were on-prem into Azure. Resource visibility. Okay, look, understanding the resources in your organization, and this was the question that I had here on the chat about, finding, orphan resources. That's something that loads of companies have. And we have some examples here, like IP addresses is a famous one, disks, SQL databases. Even sometimes, to be totally honest, it's not considered to be orphan resources, the concept, but I had customers that they had virtual machines that they didn't knew what they were doing. No one knew. And we started to monitor those very closely. And we saw during the week that has passed, nothing happened on those virtual machines, literally nothing. No one connected. There's no CPU memory usage beyond the operating system. So this is not doing anything. And of course, we have a program in place on those, and we end up removing most of those virtual machines. Some of them not because they were still doing something for someone, but not all the time, and they are still needed to be there, but maybe not turned on 24/7, which was the case. I had machines that they were used once a month, and they were turned on 24/7. Of course, we got to those business owners, the owners of those environments, and we said, hey, look, what about if we turn off the machine and then we turn it on only in the day that you need the machine? Then you do whatever you need to do on the machine as usual. And then we turn off the machine in the end of the working day again. And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. That works for me as long as that day I have the machine ready for me. Sure, of course, then we have to turn it on sometimes, other times for updating and management, security things, etc. But roughly saying, we only need to have it running whenever we need it, and not 24/7, because it's not like a web server that can get requests. No, it was just processing something when someone got into the machine and said, hey, process something. So that's it. And of course, subscription governance. Easy predefined templates for like DevOps teams, so that we can also have, and for example, this week, this is what I was doing. I was helping a company, moving and implementing DevOps for the infrastructure. So basically doing infrastructure as code, that we're not doing that part. And understanding, permissions and all of that, so that they only have the permissions that they are going to really, really need. So all this is great. How do we start? So usually I start by meeting with the companies and saying, hey, look, we need to document all this governance approach. I'm very fan of, empower the teams. So it is important for me, just to tell a team, look, you can do whatever you want. Oh, sorry. You can do your stuff in Azure. Oh, sorry. You can do your stuff in Azure, because you're going to have the permissions for that. And the thing is, I need to say, what are the rules of the game to that team? And I will tell them, look, there's this document here that has all the rules of the game. Like, oh, you want to create a storage account, for example. Sure, storage accounts, it's in here. And see, this is how you need to deploy storage accounts, with all these settings turned on or turned off, because that's what we as an organization, security team, the DevOps team, all the engineering teams that have something to say to this, we got together and we said, this is how we want this to be deployed. And you have it there, all the knowledge. So you don't need to try and see if it runs or not until you find a configuration that works. No, you have it there. And of course, using policies, Azure policies, in order, to make sure that all those standards are met. Also important, create an incident response plan. If there is something, what are you going to do? How are you going to do? So all of this, is something that we need to build. And of course, something that I also have in the PowerPoint, like if you want to create a subscription, because I need a subscription. My question is, do you really need a subscription, or do you just need a resource group and having permissions on that resource group? Because maybe that is enough for you. And so we need to, work out also that part, and make sure that you justify why you need a subscription, so that it gets approved or not, depending if it makes or it doesn't make sense. So let's talk about subscriptions. But before we even talk about subscriptions, let's very quickly, cover regions. A region is a set of data centers. And that data center, it is all the data centers of that region will be in the same country. So when we say, I don't know, West India, Central India, South India, something like that, we know all of those data centers from those regions are within India. They are not going to be like two data centers in one country and one data center in another country. That just doesn't exist, okay? And this is important for those data residency concerns that I was talking about to you. This is just a map with, and this is not totally up to date, to be honest, but you can see here, some basically some of the regions that are existing worldwide. And what I just want to tell you is just see the the dots here. There are lots of dots in the US, lots of dots in Europe. Yeah, that's where mainly the most number of regions exist. But all the other regions, especially India, for example, they also have loads of data centers, loads of regions, and of course everyone is complaining, oh, we need more, we need more, we need more. But it's kind of a game of priorities for Microsoft. And it's definitely not easy for Microsoft to just build a data center. It's not something that they just say, yeah, just build a data center, and then the data center just show up. It takes years until a region is up and going. Okay, so it is a big project, and we see some regions that were announced already some years ago, and they're still not up. They're still not what we call general available, or GA. So that takes time. So a subscription, it's a logical unit of resources. And so this is kind of what we can have. We can have an Azure account, and then that Azure account having permissions, as we can see in here, okay, into three different subscriptions. It's within this subscriptions where you create your resources, okay? And of course, with this, we can say that, hey, this subscription here, we have all these people here with access, but on the test, only those two will have access. And production, it's another two. Let's just say that get access to that. So definitely what we can say is this. You can treat a subscription as a security boundary. So for doing role-based access control, you can say, no, look, only these people will have access to, to that subscription, and others to the other. So, you can take, for example, the example that you see here, development environments here, the dev team will have access to this, but let me ask you, do you think the dev team should have access to production? The answer should be no. Of course not. That doesn't make sense for them to have, this. This subscription, it's always connected to an Azure AD tenant. And one Azure AD tenant can have, and it's pretty common to have, multiple subscriptions attached to it. Okay? Types of subscriptions. Look, there's tons of types of subscriptions. You can be an EA customer, or through CSP, or you can just go and create and put your credit card there and just create a pay-as-you-go. Look, it is totally up to you. Okay? Totally up to you. Of course, pay-as-you-go is great because there's no commitment. So you're just going there, and it's just you put your credit card whenever you want. You can just go there, close your account, and you're good to go. CSP, EA, no, it requires you to do a contract. There is a commitment, but there is basically discounts to this. Okay, so basically what happens is you can get a discount like of X% for running virtual machines in that region. So this kind of stuff, which is important for you, okay? So better prices. And of course, if you're really, really large, those discounts are pretty good. With tons of subscriptions that, companies will have. And I have customers that they have hundreds of different subscriptions. How do you organize those? So management groups. Management groups is a level, it's a level, okay, of scope above subscriptions. And so what happens with this is that I can have here, for example, my subscriptions, and create a hierarchy here of management groups. And when you create that hierarchy of management groups on top of this, basically I'm able to create stuff like imagine branches, and then all my branches subscriptions will be just there. And then, oh, branches, but what? By regions. Oh, the APAC region, or the European region, or the North America region, or EMEA, whatever your regions in your organization are. And you can divide that, because then you might want to do role-based access control, to this little bit in here, okay? or even apply policies at this level here. And if you do this, this will apply there and be basically below it, which can also impact 10, 20, 30 different subscriptions. Okay, so that will be great. This is also great for reporting, cost management, and stuff like this. I have reports in my customers like, hey, how much am I paying for the APAC region? Boom, and they get it right away because they have all the subscriptions that represent the APAC region below that management group level. So it's easy for them, to have this. So benefits that you can have with this. It's a logical representation for your organization. You can apply policies at the management group, like I was saying, RBAC and things like that. And basically this will do some governance over these subscriptions. Okay, so with this, let's do here a first demo. Okay, and let me just give me 1 second so that I basically open here, and yeah, this is my demo environment. So as you can see, this is my demo environment, and that's a good zoom. And what I have here is the Azure portal, nothing fancy, right? And if I go to subscriptions, okay, you can see that I have like tons of different, subscriptions here, and I have even more below. This is kind of the demo that I have, which is, imagine this is my company, my demo company called AZ Contoso. And what happens with AZ Contoso is I have here 2 subscriptions for Corp, okay, and then I have subscriptions for branches, okay, and this is basically some countries that I have here. And imagine we have all these subscriptions, and we're like, now I want to organize this. So I organize this. So if I search for management groups, okay, and we open management groups, this is the management group and I already have this created. But as you can see here, I have my tenant group. Ignore those 2 here, just ignore those here, okay. And then I have this group that I created here called AZ Contoso root. And under the AZ Contoso root, I created Corp as another one, and at the same level, branches, okay. So I have those 2. If I open Corp, you can see here I have 2 basically regions, 2 subscriptions inside Corp. But if I open branches, I'm not going to have subscriptions. What I will have is I still even have more, okay, management groups, because if I open like Europe, for example, I have 4 subscriptions in here. And if I open North America, I have 2. And if I open Asia, for example, in case I only have 1. But, I already decided, yeah, let's just put this in the management group because, I don't know, next year I might want to go and open a business in India, for example, a branch there. And, it's already designed, it's already designed like that if this is the regions that I use in my company, okay, which depends always in the company, okay. South America, I already have it here. I don't have any subscriptions in South America, but I already opened that one in here, okay. Now that I have this, look at this. I can go, and by the way, how do I create this? You just need to create, let's imagine, I want to create like Africa. It's not in here, but let's imagine that I wanted to create that as a region, because in my company, for us, that's a region. So you need to go to branches. And when you're in branches, you just need to go up there where it says create. So I need to be on the part that I want to create a child on. That's branches. So I'll click create. And I just need to put here an ID, okay, and then a name into this. And you see here, create a new management group to be a child of branches. That's exactly what I want. See, of course, then you might ask, hey, Tiago, and what about if I do a mistake and I don't create this exactly in the same, in the same branch that I want? Well, there's always the possibility to just take, for example, South America, and basically just click move, okay, and now decide this is going to be a child of, and you can now decide where this is going to be seating, okay. So that's something that you can do, okay. So more stuff that we can do with this. Let's move on here. So that's management groups, okay? So what do we have more? So we have Azure policies. So Azure policies, and then I'm going to show how we can assign a policy also to a management group. What are Azure policies? So basically, I can create, assign, and manage policies and run evaluations and try to find, what we call non-compliant resources. Like let's talk about resources in general. In our organization, we said it need to be within a specific region. So we can create a policy for that, and let's try to find all the other resources that are not compliant with this. So basically, they are being created in other, other regions. If you do this from the start, we have an advantage of we can even enforce that compliance. So policies, they come with something called an effect. And if I say an effect of deny, what's going to happen is new resources need to be created and that policy needs to be followed. So if you try to create a resource outside the approved regions, it's not going to be possible. And this doesn't matter who you are in terms of permissions, what kind of authorization you have. You could be someone that has the all authorization in the world in here. You're not going to be able to do this. So that's pretty, that's pretty cool stuff that I have. What are some examples of policies that we have? Allowed locations. Okay, that's the one that I was saying. But I can also say allowed resource types, allowed virtual machine SKUs, required tags and some values, enable Azure backup on virtual machines. Look, stuff like this. It is something that we can do. With this in mind, let me just start by demoing here. Let me demo here, and let me show you one thing. I'm going to try to create a new resource, okay? And let's just say I want a storage account. It could be any other resource. It doesn't matter. It's just this one because it's fast. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this subscription, AZ Contoso UK. And what I wanted to see is the behavior of this when there is already an Azure policy in place that specifies that. See, if you create resources in that region, so that will be the scope, all those resources need to be in one of the 2 UK regions. Let's give you a name to this, and I'm just going to put here, some random name so that it's unique and we're good. And I'm going to leave East US. So what I'm doing is, and I will click review. So this is running the final validation, as you can see here, okay? And this should give me an error, which did. If you click here to view the details, you see the error, and the error says, hey, look, the creation of this resource was disallowed by a policy. And then you have here which policy it is. And if we click on that policy, this will open another tab in our browser. And if you have the right permissions for this, then you might not have permissions to get in here, but that depends. But in my case, I have, so I can show you that. You see here the name of the policy. You see the policy definition that I'm using. It's one called allowed location. And in the parameters, you see that I have 2 locations that are being whitelisted. So only those 2, okay, are the ones that are allowed. So this means, okay, I know, yeah, okay, got it. So I get in, yeah, of course, this needs to be created in the UK. And I'll come in here, Europe, UK South, for example, and I click review, and then this, let me just take the error from here. This will just be okay. Okay, now I can click create down here, okay? Which I'm not going to create, but you get the idea, okay? So this is just a very, small example on how, an Azure policy can be. I also use Azure policies a lot You know, for what? For naming conventions. So look at this. Let me try to create a virtual network. I have a naming convention just for virtual networks, okay? And if I try to do this, you know, I try to create this in here. And like, for example, you just say, oh, VNet, you know, India Summit. That's a great name, you know. Well, let's imagine it is, okay? But if I try to do this, this will have the same behavior as before, so it will fail. We click here and we see that, hey, look, there's a naming policy, you know, for this. So that's not according to the naming policy. So I'm not letting you create this because the effect, okay, is the deny. In this case, look, to be totally honest with you, the naming policy is very silly, okay? But it was just a test the other day, okay? So it needs to do like this, like India Summit, okay? Because it needs to start like this, okay? Basically, that's it. And, you know, I'll just say, yeah, there you go. And now this is going to be okay, validation passed. Okay, see, that's it. How do you see this? So you can always go, you can always go here to policies. Okay, so policy. And under policy, if you go to assignments, because this is already something that's already working, so it's a policy assignment, you will find here that I have here a policy that was called naming policy VNets. Okay, and we're like, okay. And you click here and you can see the policy, you can see where the policy is being, you know, assigned and all of that. Look, it all be here. But what I want to show you right now is this view definition. So if you click view definition, so this is the definition of the policy. This is a policy that is custom made. So I built this one myself, okay? It was not something that wasn't by default come by default. It's a, you know, naming policies are pretty, in this case, this is a pretty, you know, exclusive policy for me. So that's what we had in here. And as you can see, what I'm doing here, see AZVN dash something. So that was it, or something else. Okay, in my case, I have any off. So there is some things that, you know, we can do in here. And this is what I wanted to show you, though. This is the effect. There are more effects. We're not here to talk about policies, just policies, because this is a huge topic, as you can imagine. But there's another policy called audit that, as the name says, it will allow you to create, but then you're not going to be compliant. And where can you see that? So if we go to policies again, okay, and I'm in the overview now, you see right here what we call the policy dashboard or compliance dashboard. If you want to see just that, here on the left menu, just go to compliance, you know, and yeah, that's what you see. You just see that, whatever. Okay, but in here, you can see that in my demo environment, which I will never fix all the stuff this is giving me errors so that I have stuff to show, okay? You can see that I'm 56% compliant. Believe me when I tell you this. This is an amazing score for most customers out there after they implement policies. The first time that you click here, after all the policies that they need are going to be implemented, believe me when I tell you that this score usually is really, really, really low. 1 digit low, sometimes even, okay? But this is a great, you know, thing to see, because you can clearly see, oops, you know, we need to improve this. And in my case, for example, you know, I have things in here like allowed locations Europe, okay? And if you see this one here, I have 86%. I'm okay on 6 out of 7 resources. So I'm like, oh, so that means, you know, I have 1 resource that is not okay, you know? So you can click here and then you can, investigate what is wrong. And you see there's this demo PPG, and you see that the location of this is East US. And now you have to do something, some actions, to fix this, which in this case, or you just delete and recreate this again if you can. There are, tons of considerations for this. Because this is a proximity, a placement proximity group in this case. Or, you move the resource to another resource group, because this case of this policy assignment, the scope is this subscription, this resource group. So, I can move it to another one where it will be then compliant. So it's up to you to decide, does it make sense? Does it not? Look, I don't have an answer for you because it depends on the business case, okay? And in here, I don't have a business case for this, okay? So that's what we have with, with policies. Now, let's go to policies again. And let's create a policy on our own and see how do we do the assignment, and all of that. So for that, let me create first. Let's go back. Let's go to resource groups, okay? Let me create here a resource group so that we have a resource group, and that will be the scope that we're going to have, okay? Let's just say this here, okay? And let's just put this in Central India. And there you go. Let's create it. Cool. And what I'm going to do is, in that resource group, all the resources that I create there need to be in Central India too. That's what I want to do, okay? Because let's imagine it's a regulation that you have, internal, governmental, whatever, and I want that to be the case. So what I'm going to do is this. Let me go to policies, and I'll go to assignments, and under assignments, I could just say assign a policy and just go from here. I don't like, because, when you click assign a policy, then when you click here to policy definition, so this is the UI of the policy definitions. It's just too small for me, and I can't see everything, etc. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to go to definitions first. And in definitions, I have more options here, initiatives, policies, the categories. So it's easier for me to find the right one that I want to, assign. And as you can see here, I already have some custom policies that I created. So they are here. But in my case, let's just search for a location. If you search for location, sorry, there's just a huge thunderstorm where I live, and there was like a huge thunder right now. Sorry about that. And basically what I have here is, everything that has location in the name, as you can see here, it just showed up. But the one that I want is this one, the one that's called allowed locations. So I'll select that one, and I can see the definition now, because it is important for me, to see the description in here. This is a policy that enables da 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 da. If this definitions, you come in here, you read this, and you do two things with this. You learn then how to also implement your own. Sorry, and you can see what this is really doing. So you're making sure, yeah, that's the one that I want. And after that, what are you going to do? You're going to click assigned. Okay? You click in assign, and now this is the same thing as you saw before, but the policy definition is already filled in. I now just need to choose a scope. What can be a scope? So a scope could be a management group. It can be a resource group, management group, a subscription, or a resource group. And basically you have the three of them in here, right? Management group, subscription, and resource group. And look, it's up to you. In our case, we just want that resource group. So we could just go here directly, and I think I created under the training. and AZ India Summit. There you go. So that's the one that I want. And then, of course, look, create this with an assignment name. Always, put an assignment name, or else everything will be called allowed locations that use the same policy definition, and then you don't know what it is. So just put something in there, put a description too. In my case, look, I'll just go to review and create. Oh, sorry. I need to go to parameters, and I need to select here. We said Central India, right? Let's go Central India. And then I'll click create. And now this is creating, that that policy assignment. Now that that policy assignment is created, what can I do? So let's try to create a resource. Let's just go with a storage account, and let's place this storage account where? In that resource group, the AZ India. Let's just give it a name, ST, some random numbers, and let's leave this in East US. And when we click review, you see that's what we have. That the normal behavior should be an error. Sometimes this takes, this takes some time to kick in, but this should give me an error right away here. But look at this. It is still good to show you, okay? Even though it didn't even give me the error in here, which it should be like in a few minutes, the error that you should get. If you try to click create, this is not going to create. It was still going to give you an error when you're creating the this. See, there you go. Okay, it just says forbidden operation details, and then if you go in here in the operation details, see type policy violation. So it doesn't give you the portal takes a little bit of time to validate that, and still gives you, you're okay. But actually the ARM layer, when you're creating the stuff, will still give you the error right away after you created a policy. So it's great, not great, but still the policy is still enforced. That, let's just say that. It's just the portal that doesn't show you this. To be totally honest, it's not a big problem. A lot of people, big problem. It is not. Because most of the times, let's be honest, we're not going to use the portal to create stuff. We're going to do what? We're going to use DevOps, we're going to use scripts, templates, whatever, and those go to the ARM layer. So they don't have like a portal to pre-validate stuff. No, you send them, boom, and you get that error from the ARM layer if that is the case. So that's fine. That's not a big problem, to be totally honest. So basically, this is policies. Now, let's talk about what are my 5 top policies. Enforced locations. So I even did a demo on that. Yeah, sure. Allowed VM SKUs. You can save tons of money with this because, let's be honest, not every customer need those very, very large virtual machines. Okay? Those very, very large virtual machines are just for a small subset of customers. But sometimes you have them there available, and as long as you have RBAC rights, to create virtual machines, you can create those very large virtual machines. Probably that is not what you want to have. Okay, so that is something. Another one is block virtual machine management ports using NSGs or Azure firewalls, enforce tags, allow services, because sometimes, again, there are very cool services in Azure, but sometimes you just don't need them in your teams, and you don't want your teams to just, figure it out how they work and stuff like this, or else, you start to have, I don't know, data brick clusters that are not well configured security-wise, performance-wise. No, you first need to figure it out as a team. How are we going to create this? And then only then is that you just go here and allow services. Yes, because on that document that I talk about in the beginning of my presentation, you already have all the rules on how, to create, let's just say, data bricks. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. Let's change gears now. RBAC, role-based access control. This is what we have behind the scenes in what we call the resource management layer. And of course, we can do what with this? This is the authorization part. It relies on Azure AD, relies on Azure AD also for the authentication so that we know that you are who you say you are. But then on the authorization part, this allows me to give very well-defined permissions to your resources. So what happens is I can very, very well, just come on here and define that you have a person, that person is only going to have permissions to come here and just to a certain scope, which is, imagine just a small resource group, and only on that resource group. And it will only have permissions to, read. So you can only do reader on that resource group. In another resource group, oh, I want you to have contributor rights. Or if I want, I can be more specific and just say, look, you can contribute, but only on virtual machines. But I want to create a SQL database. It's not allowed. So, but you can still contribute, but just for virtual machines. So with this, it's what I say in this bullet point that says segregate the duties within your team. Grant only the amount of access your users need to perform their jobs. And when I say users, okay, I'm just saying users in here, but I could also say, oh, there's an Azure DevOps pipeline somewhere deploying something in here. And you can't even imagine the number of pipelines I see that they have permissions on the subscription level as contributor, which means you can create whatever you want, which means you can delete whatever you want. Got it? So in one, they're not my customers, fortunately, but in an Azure customer, someone got access to that, to a pipeline, okay? So they could change the pipeline. They created a pipeline that just says, run this PowerShell script. And the PowerShell script was pretty simple. It was just saying, remove all the resources that you have on your Azure subscription. And they run the pipeline. And yeah, the pipeline run and deleted hundreds or thousands of resources. I don't know what the impact was that they had on an Azure subscription. And all that stuff, all that data was gone. Then, of course, the customer worked with Microsoft. I don't know the details, but I think they recover a good chunk of it. But that was a major issue. Is this an issue of Azure? Of course not. It's just not well configured. Okay, so you just need to pay attention to these details, and of course, being picky, with the permissions is massively important. It's kind of a best practices in all of this. RBAC concepts that we have three things, okay, which is the security principle, which basically is an object that represents something that is requesting access. It could be a user or a group of users. It could be a managed identity or an app registration, something like that. Role definition. So we don't give permissions directly. Oh, read, write, and like we do like in the file system or something like that. No. We have role definitions that have the permissions, okay? And that's what you're going to give it. Oh, you are going to have that role, and that's it, okay? And then scope. Scope could be
It's just a
management group.
reminder. Last 10 minutes remaining.
Yeah, sure. We have in terms of permissions, we have management groups, we have Azure subscriptions, we have resource groups, and we even have the individual resources. All those could be scopes. And as an assignment, what do we have as an assignment? As an assignment, what we're going to have is this. That security principle will have this role definition within that scope. Okay, so that's what we do when we have that. And all of that, I can do a very quick demo on RBAC. Let's just do this in RBAC, which is let me just go in here, and if we open this, let's just say resource groups. I'll go for our resource group that we created, and all the RBAC stuff is done here. Access control, identity access management. And when you click there, you click add, and you just say add a role assignment. And this is where you're going to define this. First is, hey, who is okay, what's the role that you want to give? And as you can see, there are tons of roles here, okay? So the three major ones, let's just say, are what? Owner, contributor, and reader. As the name says, reader, you can only read. Contributor, you can read and write. Owner is the same as contributor, but you can also manage permissions, okay? So you can assign roles and stuff like that. Let's just say I want to give reader access. Next. And now I need to select what? What's my, principal? And in my case, it could be a user, a group, a service principal, or a managed identity, okay? Select members, and let's just find here Tiago, and it could be this Tiago here, and you just select, there you go. Now that Tiago, okay, review and assign, and now that Tiago will have access, as a reader just to that management group. So that's kind of, what we can do with this. So pretty cool, pretty cool stuff. And of course, if we are picky, with all the things that we do with this, yeah, it could be massively cool what we can do with this. Now let's talk about cost management. So I already covered, policies, management groups, subscriptions are back, cost management, which is the last topic. So we have the obvious tools that I'm not going to cover. Pricing calculator. You just type Azure pricing calculator on the browser if you don't know, and you get to this one here, which is great. You just go there and just do whatever you want there, and you calculate, oh, how much will this cost me? Stuff like that. Azure Migrate, when you're migrating virtual machines, also comes with some costs, simulations and things like that. Azure Database Migration Services, another great, service to do my database migration, app service migration, migration center. They all calculate how much you're going to pay. That's the obvious cost. Let's just move on. Managing costs. You need to understand one thing. It's different depending if you're an IT executive, you work in a financing team, or you just work in the project team. Because if I'm the IT executive, like usually the CIO of a company, I need to understand, is cloud, something as strategically, something that is good for me? Is it doing any good for my organization? And they need to understand return on investment, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes I have companies that they know they are paying more for cloud, okay? Even if I told them no, because you're not doing all the costs, they say they do, but they are still okay with that, because they say, Tiago, this is great, because I can move faster, I can deploy faster, I can use services in here that are much easier for me just to build something. And I said, yeah, but that's why it's cheaper, because instead of your IT development teams doing, I don't know, hours and hours and days of coding, you can just use a service that's just, partially ready over here. So that's a great advantage that you have. Financing teams, they need to do a very important thing, okay? Which is, we need to tell them, in this day, this is how much you need to pay on Azure. And they need to find the funds so that in that day, we have money to pay the bill. That's what it is, okay? So that's great too, and that's very important for those companies. And of course, project teams, they need to deliver more with the budget that they're given to. So they need to, just within their project, they're limited to that project. Okay.
Yeah,
I
this is
know,
a
5 minutes.
reminder. Yeah, last 5 minutes.
What about resource tags? Just to close up here, we just have like 2-3 slides and we're good. Resource tags, what we have. So you can tag every single resource you have in Azure. And this is like metadata for your Azure resources. And one of the things that I do a lot is cost center. There's other usage for tags, but we're in the cost management part. So cost center, in this case, marketing. So there you go. So then, because this is what I get in terms of cost visibility, and yeah, it's really small. Yeah, you can't see anything. That's normal. Don't try to read this, okay? Because that's the idea, really, is we have, sometimes millions, even more than millions, like we say here, of lines every month. It's super detailed, this report. And for you to analyze this, it's just impossible to analyze this as the data as it is. So what we use is we need to use tags, and we need to use tools like Power BI or the billing API, third-party even products for this in order, to analyze the bill. There is one tool that I love, which is if you just go on the portal and you just go to cost management and billing, and in here, okay, if you go to cost management, you can just, have kind of a feeling on how is your billing going to be, and, and things like that. And you can create alerts. We can create budgets, and we create like a budget, 100 euros a month, let's just say. And then, if this gets higher than this, something is going to happen. So you see here, I have this, and then I have like a spike here because here I put something else to run, and this had a spike, but then I removed it. So then, it's just like this again. So this is the kind of stuff that it is important for organizations to see, and you get this literally, okay, out of the box. So pretty cool stuff. Last slide that I have, cost savings. How can you save money very easily? Search for reservations. Okay, hybrid benefits. You might still be paying licensing in on-prem and still on Azure for Windows machines, SQL, etc. Get Azure credits for Microsoft for a project. Sometimes they give you that. Moving workloads from one region to the other. Not all regions are charged the same. Some are cheaper than others. So if you can, of course, think about that. Think about budgets and putting, like alerts on the budgets and stuff like that. And policies. Like sometimes, when you defined, you can only create these resources. That means that people are not going to create other resources, So you're restricting them so you can also save money with this. So it's pretty cool stuff, that you can do with this. There's a lot here in the cost management part, but for you to save money. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. My name is Tiago, and this is how you govern Microsoft Azure. You can follow me on follow.tiagocosta.com, or you can just, email me if you wish. And a big, big, big thanks for all the sponsors, okay, that we have here. Without them, this kind of events could not be possible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Diego.
Hi, welcome.